Hey guys, welcome to Wrench to Drive. This is a quick look at the 3D printed mods that I've made up for the Injora Bouncer. As you can see, there's a few changes here, including a new hood. That's more just for entertainment value, and it pivots up, obviously, as you can see. There's an electronics tray, there's a axle mounted servo for Red Cat XR247 axles, and there's a couple of bits and pieces, including a transmission mount or a spacer that lets you run a 550 motor in this bad boy, because stock with the stock transmission mount, a 540 is all you can pull off, and I'll show you that first so I don't forget. So with this is the stock transmission mount, guys, and I'll try and show you clearly here. I think you can see this link mount right here is right up against the motor. Right, there's no room there. That's the problem. So you got to raise up the transmission and the motor so that it clears that link mount, otherwise you can't run a 550. So that's what the spacer or the transmission mount accomplish. So this transmission mount, guys, I use this in my WL Toys 12428 conversion, and it's basically this way just because it was easy and I didn't have an axial one to go by, so I just made this up, and it is what it is, guys. So as you can see, just 3D printed plastic. It clearly mounts the transmission high enough that a 550 can stick out over this, and the only thing you might need to do is add a couple of layers of tape just to raise it a hair more. Mine was a little bit snug. It works, but just a hair snug, guys. I didn't actually even notice until it was in the car, so whether that's a big deal or not, I'm not totally sure. The only weakness on this is when you print it, if these ends don't turn out beautiful, they can be a weak spot, and that's one problem I had. And I used the handy dandy 3D printing pen, which is starting to earn its keep, guys. It's not perfect. I did a review on this. A quick showed me how to fix things and strengthen things a little bit. Okay, all you do is you add plastic around the outside and you warm up the end really nicely, so it bonds really well, and you build up a layer. And I made it kind of ugly, and then I just grinded it down and made it round again. So all these ends on this part have been modded. I built them up with the 3D printing pen, and then I ground them down, smoothed them out a little bit, made them look nice, and away we go. The other thing I did to this part, guys, all the holes, I drilled the outside holes big enough that the screw just slides in, and then I left the inside holes so that it threads. It makes it a little bit easier to put together, hopefully a little less likely to have any sort of problems. I think that's about it. It prints really nice. You just print it laying down like this. This is the bottom, and you really shouldn't have any problems. So there's that. I only have a really preliminary version of the spacer. I was just double checking the dimensions. This is a real thin one. I made it 5mm because I believe that's how tall it needs to be. I measured, kind of did the best I could. If you need to scale it up or down or add a couple layers of tape, you know, I don't think that's a huge big deal. This one's slightly too big. I didn't notice that the sides actually had to be a little shorter, a little closer to the holes. I haven't printed out the spacer and tested it, so I think it'll fit. You might need to do a little massaging, just beware of that. If you do, somebody post a comment and I'll tweak it. Otherwise, you're on your own. Alright, so that's the transmission. That'll let you run a 550 motor, no problem, guys. As you can see, trust me, that's a 550. See how it hangs out way above the link there? This is an old one I had. It's actually it's got some cracks in the ends, and they just showed up actually. I've run it for quite a while. It's been in my 12428 conversion. It's multiple versions of all kinds of stuff. My King of Hammers type truck that I custom made. It's been in all kinds of stuff, guys, so it held up pretty well, just so you know. I also had to machine out just a little bit of an angle there to get these links to fit properly. That did not seem to be a problem in many applications. I should probably, I wonder if I fixed that or not. I don't think I fixed that. Yeah, because I have one of these handy dandy moto tools, so I tend to be a little bit lazy sometimes, and I just go and fix it after the fact. Maybe I should fix that. If it's fixed, great. If it isn't, you might need to do a little bit of grinding for this application, guys. I would just use that spacer if you are in the market to make this particular mod. So whatever. My apologies if that irritates anybody, but that's what you get for free, guys. If you want to start paying, well, then I'll make things exactly the way you want them. This little bad boy is a clip-on spacer. So the Red Cat XR247 axles have a little bit extra space by all the mounts. So this is the prototype, just to make sure it fits. The actual one is 3mm, I believe, 2 or 3, and you just clip them on there, and it lets you eliminate wobble. So that's the clip-on spacers. I also made some 3D printed spacers. I had these metal ones kicking around, but in case you don't, and you need some, I included some in this post, guys, so you can use them. The other thing I kicked in there is 3D printed nuts. This is just an M3 nut. I've been meaning to do this forever because I don't have any M3 nuts, and I finally remembered and kind of sucked it up and got around to it. So I made a bin full of them. So now I have a bunch. Very handy. Yes, I know nuts are cheap, guys, but you got to order them and they got to show up and blah blah blah. All right, the axle mounted servo. The big thing, you need 3 screws, and I believe they are 20mm M3, but I could be wrong about this front one and the link mount that goes through the stock link mount and into this piece to add some rigidity. They might be 25. I believe they're 20. Actually, let's see here. So that's a 25mm, and I want to say that might actually be too long. I'm trying to remember now because I know I did a couple of little tweaks. Okay, so let's say this is a 25 that you might need to cut down a hair, because what you want to make sure you don't do, guys, is have a screw that's too long, because when you thread it into the axle, if it bottoms out, it can strip that hole. You do not want to do that. So double check this screw, like you thread it in without the piece in place, and double check to see how deep it goes very carefully, and then you can put the plate kind of beside it, have a quick look. The flats go just a hair below the truss, guys, so you want to check that out and just make sure. The link mount screws, which are kind of hard to see, this outside one is super easy. This adds the 4th link. That's easy. You just use a 15 or a 20. And then the inside one, what you want, notice the screw has to go through the stock mount and then into the 3D printed part. So it just needs to be long enough to do that. And the combination of those 2 screws, the inside one and the outside, each from each end, needs to just be short enough to not take up that whole space, if that makes sense. Anyways, pretty sure those are 20s, pretty sure that's a 25. That's what you need to know. I used these little metal posts here that came with my metal axles. I also included 3D printable posts to mount the servo. You run a screw in from the bottom, and then you mount 4 screws from the front, and your servo's in place. So that's how you get that going. Then the electronics tray. This looks more or less like this right here. So this mounts across the back bar. This sits on the front bar. All you do is you angle it in a little bit past the hood mounts, slide it in real careful like, kind of pop it into place, and away you go. I had a surprising amount of trouble getting that to line up right. I believe the one that's posted fits pretty darn near perfectly. If it does not, please post a comment. I have not printed out the last one. Just for reference, all I did to mine, as you can see, I think that rear part there is at a bit of an angle. The back It's angled forward just a bit, guys. All I did, because I somehow got this too long. At first it was too short, then it was closer but not quite right, and then I overdid it somehow. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but all I did, I used a heat gun to warm up this part very, very gently, and then when it started to bend a little bit, took the heat gun away. You can feel it when it happens. You squeeze it on each end, so you get a little bit of, you can feel the kind of the spring tension in your fingers. When you heat it up, when you just feel that starting to give, that's when you get the heat off, and then you just kind of hold it at the spacing that you want, and as you can see, it fits pretty well. That's all there is to that. So relatively easy. The one that's on that I posted should fit. It's one of those deals, you get it wrong enough times, you know, the last one definitely should work. That's where I'm at, guys. I believe, oops, didn't want to do that. I believe that last one will work. So I have not printed it because I just don't want to waste the plastic, but it should work. So if somebody prints it and it's way out, a million miles out to lunch, which is pretty darn near impossible, let me know. There are two hoods. There's the one with the scoop, this one, which has an opening underneath to let air flow, and there's a louvered one with openings to let the air flow. So there's a louvered one with openings to let the air flow. Two different looks, that's the only real difference. These holes, if they look big to you, they are. The final version has smaller holes. I made a boo-boo. Yep, lots of boo-boos, guys. And then there are two versions. There's the ones with the stock four holes for mounting directly to the chassis, not easy to take off. And then there's two versions for hinges that have the holes for the hinges. So you just run in an M2 screw, 10 millimeter, and you run it through the hinge, and it holds pretty well. I'm gonna add some hot glue around that top part just to make it a little more solid. The only downside to this hood setup, I don't have a clip at the front, so it's a little loose. I was just going to tape it or a little dab of hot glue for now, because you're not going to open this up all the time. Once you get your electronics in there, that's a Hobbywing 1080 and just a kind of a standard size receiver. You know, they fit in there real nice. Once you get that in there, you're not going to be going in there too often, and I guess unless you got an on-off switch on your ESC. Alright, so some people might want to open this more than I had considered. I mounted my on-off switch right here, guys, so yeah, yeah, I definitely need to figure out a way to clip that. If somebody has any genius brainwaves, by all means, post a comment. But I don't have one at the moment, so now you get what you get. It's a bit of an adventure, but to me, not a deal breaker. They print out nicely. You just print them out flat. It's good. The hinges, you print them out standing up on their side, like tube ways, to get good flexi strength. Alright, that's it, guys. That's it for this edition of Wrench to Drive, where we ask the eternal question: do you drive to wrench, or do you wrench to drive? See you next time.